too. If you guys eat like this all the time, it's no wonder my dad was only 5'10" and wore an extra large sweatshirt. Before we begin, I'd like to thank Dustin Wilcox for allowing my brother and I to play golf yesterday in the NRD outing. This is a personal thank you. That was so much fun. Jim Thompson, the NRD's own Happy Gilmore, thank you. And where's the best looking man in the room? Lilith, where are you at? Not here, not here. I thought he'd be here. Oh, but thank you to him and to everyone else who's been so kind. You've shared such great stories with us. We appreciate them all. So we thank you. This is a proud moment for our family. My mom, Cindy, stole half of my stuff. If I gave him the whole thing, hey, that's okay. I'm the oldest. This is my thing. So I get to do this today. And on behalf of my mom, Cynthia, my brothers and my sisters, Marcy, Michael, and Corey, thank you. This annual banquet was always special to me. He liked to see his friends, hang out, spend the weekend in Kearney, or wherever else you guys would be. There's so many memories that come back. I hear words like water flow and levees and water management and watersheds, and flashes me back to when I was young or my youth. And my dad, he liked sports. Believe it or not, he did. Some of you know he liked to play golf. And while he might not have been the best athlete ever, he enjoyed the competition and he enjoyed the camaraderie that you guys shared with him. And he organized a softball team with the old NRD years ago in the 70s. And there were guys, some names some of you may recognize. There's Jerry Bowen. There was Ronnie Lehman, Dick Spleaner. I believe it was Dick who told us, and they were like uncles to us young kids. And they took us under their wing. They taught us dugout decorum. And afterwards, they would go and have an adult beverage, and we, of course, always wanted to go get pizza and play video games. And he told us, your dad's a nerd. I don't know about that. I don't think your dad's a nerd. That's it, yeah. I'm a nerd. NRD. He let it sink in until the light bulb went off in my head. I tell you that story to set this up, that this isn't how it was supposed to happen. The first time I was going to address you nerds was going to be at his retirement party at a roast. But that's not the way it worked. More of you could have poked fun of him and told stories about how bad a golfer he was, or how he really loved his paper. Lots and lots of paper. Shortly after we learned that Dad was getting introduced into this Hall of Fame, I called John Winkler and I spoke with him and I said, John, we know what our dad did. And I don't understand, but I don't know, maybe you should talk at on his behalf, to talk to the audience. And he said, Jeff, you don't worry about that. He said, the people in the room, they are. They already know how integral a part he played in the development of the NRD for the state of Nebraska and its citizens. And what they really enjoyed, share some stories about Marlin and what he was like away from work, when he was with the family. And I said, whoa, I might get to have my roast after all. But I don't think we have enough time, and I don't know that that would be very proud of me if I did that tonight. So, I have a few stories to share, and I have to admit, growing up being the oldest, I had no idea what my dad did. I knew he was an engineer, we knew we built dams, but my dad never came home dirty. He was not carrying a shovel. If it was, it usually had a gold spade. As a young boy, it was difficult to comprehend, and building dams and levees takes a lot more than just moving dirt. I learned my dad won the Young Engineer of the Award not one time, twice, back-to-back years. I don't know if that's the equivalent of winning the Heisman Trophy for the state of Nebraska. I don't know if we paid for that award. But in our household, that was the Heisman Trophy. And there's only been one guy to win back-to-back awards on the Heisman Trophy. So. And as I mentioned, there were four of us in the family, 4 kids, which means there were a lot of activities to attend. We had 1.5 cars in our family. I mention that because we had one family car, and we had half of an NRD car. Curtis, the Fabio Natural Resources District. It was only a half a car because that car was only good for work-related purposes. And her and I would have a practice that we were late. We have to wait for Mom to get back from the store. Dad, it's only 6 blocks. That is not for recreation. That's not for the family. I've been entrusted by the state of Nebraska and the people of Nebraska to drive that car only for work. Dad, no one will ever catch you. Nobody will. Just go and say, come on. I'll know, and that's all that matters. And that's the way he was. Our vacations were a little different than a lot of people's vacations. We visited dams. Not lakes. Not cities. We drove across the United States to go to Hoover Dam. And we spent the night in Las Vegas because it was the closest town. While other people got to fish and swim, ate camp at Lake McConaughey, we had a family picnic on Kinsley Dam. Math was very important to my dad. He would give us math problems in those car rides. We'd have to solve them in our heads, and I think that was his ingenious way of not having to use the other common phrase at the time, which is, if you didn't stop touching the ground, boom is going. So we were trying to find the square root of 364, and it's a lot of fun. He loved this math, and he ran math counts for a long time, and he doesn't get enough credit for that. And he passed his love of that down to our children, his grandchildren, as he would quiz them the same way he would quiz us. Swearing. That was a rarity for my dad. Some of you may have never, may know him very well, played golf with him, and still never heard him swear. I don't think I heard him swear very many times. And even as adults, as kids, very mindful. No. Too much respect. Because he deserved it. Marlin had a lot of peculiar ways sometimes. He had certain ways things needed to be done. Some of those who worked very closely with him may know that he needed did things a certain way. Marlin he was not a measure once guy. He wasn't even a measure twice guy. He might measure 3 or 4 times because we're going to make sure this is right. In 2019, he had open heart surgery in the early months, January or February, I don't recall exactly. He was 69 at the time. And as he's recovering, he was seriously talking to us in the hospital room about retiring. We kind of talked him into pondering that decision just a little bit longer. Let's see how he recovers from this. And, well, we all know what happened later in 2019. And I'm not talking about Scott Frost losing a bunch of one-score games. Of course, the flood had affected everyone. He was reinvigorated. He was seriously considering retirement because the young guys don't like having an old man around. They don't want to hear from me. And we told him, I think they're pretty happy. You're there now. There he was, 3 weeks, 4 weeks after having open heart surgery, throwing sandbags, telling generals off at Air Force Base what they need to do because they're doing it wrong. And yes, the rumors are true, as I do understand it. He did talk them out of firing missiles at the levee to train off at Air Force Base. So, my family and I, we've been so touched by all the stories, support. We thank you. We cherish them. If my dad were here, excuse me, I know he would be humbled, just to be humbled, let alone adopted with all of you. He would thank his parents, Irvin talking about his love of the land and how roots started growing on that small farm between Elwood and Arapahoe. He would thank my mom, his wife, 52 years, for all the support, for all the late night dinners he ate cold, because he was still at the office until 8, 9 o'clock p.m. He would thank God for blessing him, guiding him through his journey, because without him, none of this would be possible. He would congratulate and thank the other inductees for certain. He'll probably spend most of his speech talking about you. He would thank so many more of you. He would name you by name. I think a couple of people he might have named would be Jerry Worspan, Steve Oldman, and John Winkler, the 3 bosses he had for his 48 years, was the only job he ever had. And he would thank all of you nerds for the trust, the support, great work you all do. He'd encourage you all to press forward. Do those new projects. Don't be afraid to make the tough decisions. And don't be afraid to measure as many times as it takes to do it right. Thank you.